Today we're going to read Horrid Henry, Horrid Henry and Moody Margaret. I'm Captain Hook. No, I'm Captain Hook. I'm Captain Hook, said Horrid Henry. I'm Captain Hook, said Moody Margaret. They glared at each other. It's my hook, said Moody Margaret. Moody Margaret lived next door. She did not like Henry. Henry and Horrid Henry did not like her. But when Rude Ralph was busy, Clever Claire had flu, and Sour Susan was her enemy, Margaret just jumped over the wall to play with Henry. Actually, it's my turn to be Hook now, said Perfect Peter. I've been the prisoner for such a long time. Prisoner, be quiet, said Henry. Prisoner, walk the plank, said Margaret. But I've walked it 14 times already, said Peter. Please, can I be Hook now? No, by thunder, said Moody Margaret. Now, out of the way, worm. And she swashbuckled across the deck, waving her hook and clutching her sword and dagger. Margaret had eye patches and skulls and crossbones and plumped hats and cutlasses and sabres and sneakinies. Henry had a stick. This was why Henry played with Margaret. But Henry had to do terrible things before playing with Margaret. Swords. Sometimes he had to sit and wait while she read a book. Sometimes he had to play mums and dads with her. Worst of all, please don't tell anyone, sometimes he had to be the baby. Henry never knew what Margaret would do. When he put a spider on her arm, Margaret laughed. When he pulled her hair, Margaret pulled his harder. When Henry screamed, Margaret would scream louder, or she would sing or pretend not to hear. Sometimes Margaret was fun, but most of the time she was a moody old grouch. I won't play if I can't be Hook, said Horrid Henry. Margaret thought for a moment. We can both be Captain Hook, she said. But we only have one Hook, said Henry. Which I haven't played with yet, said Peter. Be quiet, prisoner, shouted Margaret. Mr. Smee, take him to jail. No, said Henry. You will get your reward, Mr. Smee, said the captain, waving her hook. Mr. Smee dragged the prisoner to jail. If you're very quiet, prisoner, then you will be freed, and you can be the pirate too, said Captain Hook. Now give me the hook, said Mr. Smee. The captain reluctantly handed it over. Now I'm Captain Hook, and you're Mr. Smee, shouted Henry. I order everyone to walk the plank. I'm sick of playing pirate, said Margaret. Let's play something else. Henry was furious. That was just like Moody Margaret. Well, I'm playing pirates, said Henry. Well, I'm not, said Margaret. Give me back my hook. No, said Henry. Moody Margaret opened her mouth and screamed. Once Margaret started screaming, she could go on and on and on. Henry gave her the hook. Margaret smiled. I'm hungry, she said. Got anything good to eat? Henry had 3 bags of crisps and 7 cookie biscuits hidden in his room, but he certainly wasn't going to share them with Margaret. You can have a radish, said Henry. What else? Said Margaret. A carrot? Said Henry. What else? Said Margaret. Gloop, said Henry. What's gloop? Something special that only I can make, said Henry. What's in it? Asked Margaret. That's a secret, said Henry. I bet it's yucky, said Margaret. Of course it's yucky, said Henry. I can make the yuckiest gloop of all, said Margaret. That's because you don't know anything. No, one can make yuckier gloop than I can. I dare you to eat gloop, said Margaret. I double dare you back, said Henry. Dares go first. Margaret stood up very straight. All right, said Margaret. Gloop starts with snails and worms. And she started poking under the bushes. Got one, she shouted, holding up a fat snail. Now for some worms, said Margaret. She got down on her hands and knees and started digging a hole. You can't put anything from outside into gloop, said Henry quickly. Only stuff in the kitchen. Margaret looked at Henry. I thought you were making gloop, she said. We are, said Henry. My way, because it's my house. Horrid Henry and Moody Margaret went into the gleaming white kitchen. Henry got out 2 wooden mixing spoons with a giant red bowl. I'll start, said Henry. He went to the cupboard and opened the doors wide. Porridge, said Henry, and he poured some into a bowl. Margaret opened the fridge and looked inside. She grabbed a small container. Soggy semolina, shouted Margaret. Into the bowl it went. Coleslaw, spinach, coffee, yogurt, flour, vinegar, baked beans, mustard, peanut butter, mouldy cheese, pepper, rotten oranges, and ketchup, shouted Henry. He squirted in the ketchup until the bottle was empty. Now mix, said Margaret. Horrid Henry and Moody Margaret grabbed hold of their spoons with both hands. Then they plunged the spoons into the gloop and began to stir. It was hard, heavy work. Faster and faster, harder and harder they stirred. There was gloop on the ceiling. There was gloop on the floor. There was gloop on the clock and gloop on the door. Margaret's hair was covered in gloop. So was Henry's face. Margaret looked into the bowl. She had never seen anything so yucky in her life. It's ready, she said. Horrid Henry and Moody Margaret carried the gloop onto the table. Then they sat down and stared at the sloggy, slimy, studgy, sticky, smelly, gooey, gluey, gummy, greasy, gloopy gloop. Right, said Henry. Who's going to eat some first? There was a very long pause. Henry looked at Margaret. Margaret looked at Henry. Me, said Margaret. I'm not scared. She scooped up a large spoonful and stuffed it into her mouth. Then she swallowed. Her face went pink and purple and green. How does it taste? Said Henry. Good, said Margaret, trying not to choke. Have some more then, said Henry. Your turn first, said Margaret. Henry sat for a moment and looked at the gloop. My mum doesn't like me to eat between meals, said Henry. Henry, hissed Moody Margaret. Henry took a teeny spoonful. More, said Margaret. Henry took a teeny bit more. The gloop wobbled lumpily on his spoon. It looked like Henry did not want to think about what it looked like. He closed his eyes and brought the spoon to his mouth. Yum, said Henry. You didn't eat any, said Margaret. That's not fair. She scooped up some gloop, and I dread to think what would have happened next if they had not been interrupted. Can I come out now? Called a small voice from outside. It's my turn to be Hook. Horrid Henry had forgotten all about Perfect Peter. Okay, shouted Henry. Peter came to the door. I am hungry, he said. Come in, Peter, said Henry sweetly. Your dinner is on the table.